Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you all have charged up after the tea break. Now let us invite Mr. Andy Cheung from Microsoft to share with us two topics. The first one is bring your apps to Windows 10 across phone, Xbox, tablet, and HoloLens. And the second one is latest update on Windows 10, IoT and Cloud. Mr. Cheung, please.
Hello. Can you all hear me? Yeah, great. Thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Andy. So I have two sessions today. So for each session, I will try to do the presentation in 20 minutes, and then have like 5 minutes for you to have some Q&A. You can ask me anything, and then I'll need to save 5 minutes for you guys to move to other rooms. Okay. So in the first session, I'm going to cover more on Windows 10. Different devices that is Windows 10 is covering, the application platform on it, and also I will also cover what are the ways that you can bring your applications on other platforms to Windows 10 and leverage our user base here. Okay, so this will be my first topic. My second topic will be around IoT, Internet of Things, cloud, etc. Okay, so let's move on because I know time is really limited. So first, I would like to start with what we call the platform convergence journey for Windows 10. So if I can only present one slide and let you know what is our positioning for Windows 10, it will be this slide. And this is really true that if you go to the left-hand side of your left-hand side, you can see that we started off as 3 different OS. On our gaming console, Xbox 360, on our desktop OS, at that time it was Windows 7, and then for Windows Phone, we have Windows Phone 7, Windows Phone 7.5, which was based on Windows CE. So all these 3 platforms are using different OS, different kernels, okay? They are completely different. And then at the time frame for Windows 8, what we have done is that it was the first time that we have shared the same core across all these 3 platforms. So the kernel that is running on Windows Phone 8 is actually the same as what we have in Windows 8. And if you buy an Xbox One today from Fortress, from Broadway, it is running Windows 8 inside right now. Okay, so this is actually the first time that we unify the kernel of these 3 platforms. Now, for Windows 8.1 and Windows Phone 8.1, which is our current version today, if you go out and buy a notebook today, it comes with Windows 8.1 today. So this is our current version. In this version, it is the first time that we bring together a converged app model. That means you can build your app once with one source code, one solution inside Visual Studio, and you can deploy your application across phone, tablet, notebook, and PC, etc. But at this time, Xbox One is still a separate store, separate project. And so you can see how it lands on Windows 10. Windows 10 will be our truly unified platform. All of those devices will be sharing the same kernel, and the apps will go through one single Windows store across phones, tablets, Xbox, and all other Windows 10 devices. Now, when we talk about other Windows 10 devices, we really mean there are a lot of different form factors. If you look at the bottom, so we have on the far left-hand side, the lower left corner, that is all those IoT devices, which I will talk more about that in my next session. And then for phones, tablets, all the way to notebook, desktop, and a large 84 inches big screen, a touch screen, which is running Windows 10 inside. It is also covered by Windows 10. So we have also announced our own this kind of hardware called the Surface Hub, and that is the biggest screen that you see right here. So it is more for commercial usage inside meeting rooms, etc. And then you can see HoloLens. HoloLens is our new, newly announced maybe you can say that it's a helmet or a pair of glasses that will be able to provide you augmented reality experience. So all these different form factors. When we are building applications for Windows 10, it will be able to run across all these different devices. Of course, we know that the user interface of these devices are different, and we do have a way to handle this, because when we share the core of the application across all these devices, we will be able to define the different UI experience to let it flow from a phone interface, and then the data when you go to tablet, you go to desktop, when the screen goes larger and larger, the data within your application will just flow in it naturally. Or as a developer, you can always define what you need, okay, in your own application. So this is actually a truly unified platform. Now, in another way, when we see that, is that across all these multiple device families, we will have one common application model, we will have one common tool set, that is Visual Studio. And then we have a common store. So the store on Xbox One will be the same as the store on a Windows 10 phone or on a tablet or in HoloLens, okay? So that will share the same store. If you have one application or game, you submit it once to Windows Store, and then it will be made available to all the platforms if you allow it to do so. Okay, so for example, if I have a game which only works on phones, yes, of course you can do that. And then at some point in time, maybe 6 months later, you want to add the support on Xbox One. You can go ahead and update your application. You add the Xbox One's reference in your project, and then you start, you need to code a bit on the what will happen when the user press A, right, and B, and X and Y, because that is the control of the Xbox One. So after you define that, you submit the same update to the store, okay, so that it will start to be available to all the Xbox One users also, okay? So this is what we call a unified store experience, both to the developers and also to our end users. Now you may have some questions about how is it going to work on HoloLens. Now, from a application perspective, we go from phone, go to tablet, okay, that's kind of natural. Tablet, maybe a landscape view, and then you go to desktop and Xbox One, that is pretty much the same. But HoloLens is kind of a different experience, so how are we going to do that? Now, I want to say there are actually kind of two types of application that we can build inside HoloLens. One of them is kind of a 2D application, okay? So it may be similar to this. What you see is kind of a 2D view. This is actually Skype. So this lady here is wearing a HoloLens, and then he's trying to fix a pipe, and with Skype, he has maybe her father telling her how she can fix that pipe. And then at the as her daddy's hand, maybe they are in different, in their own home, okay, each of them. He may have his own tablet, and then he may draw some kind of 3D arrows on his tablet, and then it will appear 3D overlaying as augmented reality arrow on top of the real pipe, because when she sees through the HoloLens, he sees those arrows right on top of the pipe. So this kind of usage scenario is actually what HoloLens is targeting. And it is what Microsoft is moving forward with Windows 10 with this kind of innovation here. Now, I would like to show you a very short video, and then I will come back and briefly discuss how we bring this kind of Windows 10 application to different devices, including HoloLens. So let me play just a kind of a 2 or 3 minutes videos here.
Now, before we start, let me explain the setup a little bit. Darren is wearing a HoloLens, and he sees this globe we showed you in January right in his world. Now, we also have this custom camera rig over here, so that you can see the holograms up on these screens as if the camera is wearing a HoloLens. Now, when we introduced Windows Holographic, the globe was just a slide. Today, Darren is experiencing it as a universal Windows app. And guess what? It's running on Windows 10. Welcome to Windows Holographic. This is life with holograms. And as you can see, Darren has customized his space. Instead of digging through menus, everything is right where he wants it.
Yeah, whether it's Microsoft Edge, Photos, or video apps, these are simply universal Windows apps that we've placed as holograms. So, whether it's a slate on the wall, or something a little bit more dimensional, like my loyal companion Fang here, hey buddy, you can customize your space the way you want it. Now, I want to add something to my space, so I'm going to pull up my holographic start menu, and I'm going to open up Skype. I'm the worst at keeping in touch, so I'm going to take the people that matter most to me, and I'm going to pin them to this wall right here. That way, every time I walk into this room, I'll see their smiling faces and be inspired to reach out to them.
We're all creatures of habit, and we do different things in different spaces in our homes. This stage, as an example, is modeled after Darren's apartment.
Yeah, and this is where I'd hang out in my apartment and surround myself with the applications that I want to access or just check out. For example, I'm planning a trip to Hawaii in a couple weeks, so I placed this awesome weather app over here, so when I'm moving around, I can easily glance at it, reference it, and understand what the weather's going to be like when I get there. Hopefully still hot. Then if I look up here on the wall, to my left, I've got a video player. I simply reach out, air tap, and I'm right in the action.
Now, what if Darren has things to do around the house? He shouldn't be confined to watching just on one wall. He should be able to take his entertainment with him anywhere and remain hands-free as he does it.
Yeah, so all I need to say is follow me. Now wherever I go in my house, my entertainment tags along. All right. And where it gets where I'm going, I simply place it, and I can scale it as big as I want. Now, that's not something just a video player does. Every single universal Windows app has the same capabilities. For example, I placed a calendar over here because, as Alex will tell you, I'm late for pretty much every meeting. So this makes it, a guy like me, makes it a lot easier for me to just check in and see what I've got coming up next. We're discovering uses for holograms every day. We know with all you here at Build, putting your minds towards it, we're going to be discovering new uses every second. I hope you have an inspiring time at Build. We'll see you out there.
Thank you, Darren.
Great. So this was a demo done around 3 weeks ago when we announced more information on HoloLens at our event in the US called Build. So in that video, I think you probably noticed a few things. So there are what we call universal Windows applications, which basically are the applications that we built for Windows 10 on a desktop, on a tablet. It is, 2D, maybe in landscape mode, or if you want it, it can be in portrait mode. It doesn't quite matter. If your application is a universal Windows app, it will be able to run on HoloLens, okay, as the way that you have just seen. Or if you want to build some kind of 3D stuff that you have seen, maybe the little puppy, that are some 3D stuff, right? The best way that you get yourself prepared is to work on the popular, those gaming 3D engines that are popular when you are doing mobile games development. So for example, Unity, Cockles, etc. Those kind of engines will work on Windows 10 also, and hence it will work on HoloLens, because in HoloLens, it is running Windows 10 inside HoloLens. So this is what we call the Universal Windows Platform, or what we call the UWP applications. So you may have a sense right now. So UWP, or Universal Windows Platform, is actually covering all the device types. So you can see at the center, it is our UWP, this kind of apps, and then around it for all kind of devices, desktop, Xbox, mobile, holographics, IoT, and large screens like Surface Hub. It will all be able to run Universal Windows apps, okay, or what we call UWP apps, okay? So this kind of application, how can we build applications on UWP? There are actually a number of different ways. So of course, traditionally on the blue bubble on the left hand side, if your application is coming from Windows 8 or a Windows 8 apps, or coming from a desktop application, you will be able to, if it's a Windows 8 application, simply it will run automatically on Windows 10 already. If you want to add some Windows 10 specific feature, you'll be able to port your project into a Windows 10 project and then add your Windows 10 specific features there. Or if you have a classic desktop application, you will also be package it and submit it to the Windows Store as a UWP application. So after your desktop application is turned into a UWP, you will be able to run on different devices that you are targeting. Because after you turn it into UWP, you still need to identify what kind of device families you are targeting. Okay, so you will be able to work on that part also. Now, on the right-hand side, we have the web platform. So if you have a responsive website, you have a mobile website that you want to package it into a universal Windows app, you can also do it. Okay, so we will have this kind of tools in Visual Studio for you to quickly package your web application into a universal application so that you can submit it to Windows Store, your users can download it, and you can leverage what the Windows Store is providing for you. For example, payment, right? So this kind of features can be added to your web application. Now, on the lower left corner, okay, the green bubble, if you are coming from some middleware platforms, for example, Xamarin, or if you're building games, for example, on Unity, we already have been working with these kind of partners for a very long time. So, for example, Unity, their engine is supporting Windows 10. We have announced this partnership already. So if currently you have something built on Unity, some kind of 3D models, it will going to work on Windows 10 as well. Now, for the lower right corner, so this may be the most interesting part, because Microsoft will be providing two bridges. One of them is called Project Astoria. The other one is called Project Islandwood. These two bridges will let developers to bring their Android and iOS applications directly onto Windows 10 as a universal Windows platform. Okay, so there is a website which is you just go ahead and search for Universal Windows Platform or UWP bridges. You will arrive at this site, and then down here we'll have more information about how you can do it. Now, this is we have announced these two bridges, but it is not released yet. So right now, you can only sign up for more information, and you'll receive email notification if it is released. But to drill a little bit deeper on these two things, is that let me go back a little bit on my slide here. So for Project Astoria, it is for developers to bring their Android application to Windows 10. What they will do is that, so this is just taken from the website that I've just shown you. Okay, so you can find this information also on the web. But I'd like to describe a little bit for you. So if you have an Android application today, what you need to do to bring it to Windows 10 is that you can stay on your Android IDE. So if you're using Eclipse or others, okay, Android IDE, Android apps IDE. So you stay there. And then you will need to download and project Astoria plugin and install that in your IDE. And then through that plugin, you'll be able to package your Android source code, your Android application. Now, of course, you need to own the source code of that application first, okay? So through that plugin, you will be able to create a wrapper around your Android application, and then with that wrapper, you'll be able to submit it to Windows Store, and it will identify it as a universal Windows app, okay? So through this process, there are a very high reusability of your code change, but it is not 100%, okay, just to set the expectation of everyone. It is not 100%, so there may be some things that you will need to make changes, but that changes will be minimal. Or if you are using some of the controls or services, for example, Google Map, right? So right now, Google Map, those control is not able to run on a Windows phone or later on Windows 10 phones. Okay, so if you have these kind of scenarios, when we package that wrapper for you, you will be notified that, oh, we have detected that you are using this kind of control, and here are the steps, and you can change it to for example, a Bing Map control that is working on Windows devices. Okay, so you will be given this kind of guidelines. But all in all, this is a very easy way for you to bring your Android application to Windows 10 and have it as a universal Windows app. Okay, so this is just also taken from the website. Same application running on Nexus 6, and then same application running on Lumia 1520. Okay. So the other one is for iOS. Okay, so Project Ironwood is for iOS. If you're a developer that owns a iOS application today, what you can do is that this time you cannot stay in your iOS app development environment. So for iOS, we are doing it in a little bit different way. So what we're doing this is that you have your Objective-C source code. You will be able to open your source code, load them on Visual Studio directly. Load your Objective-C source code inside Visual Studio. Okay, and then we will create a UWP project for you inside Visual Studio. Okay, and with that, you may want to make necessary changes within Visual Studio, and then when you compile it, it will become a native universal Windows app. Okay, so this is how we are doing for iOS applications. So it's a little bit different from the Android path. Okay, so you will be able to do it either way. Okay, see which way works better for you. Okay, so for Project Ironwood, it is integrated with Visual Studio. This is Objective-C inside Visual Studio, and you have got all the syntax highlighting, all the good stuff in Visual Studio. You'll be able to get it. And then a full debugging, you can set breakpoints, etc. when you run it. And of course, there will be some universal API interrupt, because there are still some APIs that doesn't exist on iOS, but it is only exists on Windows 10. So we will have those API interrupt available for you. And you will have your Xcode projects, source code, all imported into Visual Studio. And within Visual Studio, you can have it compile it into a universal Windows platform application. Okay. So this is actually, we have some successful case right now, because before we announced these two bridges, we have already given these tools to Kings, which is the developers for Candy Crush. And they have used this tool to make the Windows Phone version of Candy Crush, which I am playing is every day, okay, on my Windows Phone already. So if you have a Windows Phone, you can download that, try it, check its performance on different Windows Phone devices, and you will get a sense on how it's going to work, okay? So we already have some successful case here, and on top of that, they can integrate with the payment system of Windows Store, etc. Okay, so this is a kind of a go back to this summary slide. So in short, the Universal Windows Platform is the application platform for Windows 10, and we are trying to provide as many help to the developers as possible. We're providing all these kind of bridges so that you can bring your application from different platforms onto Windows 10. And then once you get it on Universal Windows Platform, you will be able to run across a wide range of device families that is running Windows 10. Okay, so I know the time is really rushed. I hope you get something out of this session. So let's have a couple of Q&A right now. If you have any questions, you can ask. Yes, please.
Thanks for your fascinating speech. I have two questions. The first one is about the performance of Project A and Project I. I'm interested in how much tests you have gone through in these two projects, and what is the conversion rate of raw code, like how much of the code can be used directly without little or no modification at all?
Actually, right now, I do not have those data in hand, okay? So, and in fact, it is not released yet. Okay. However, when you look at the website, it says that more information will be made available in summer. So it's just a couple of months or 3 months away that we can get more information. And I think once we can get the hands-on on these kind of bridges, we will be able to test it out. I actually encourage you to test it out with your application yourself, because I would say, from everyone's experience, right? The answer to your question is actually it really depends on your project, right? It really depends on your project. So, for example, with Candy Crush, they may have just little changes, but for your application, you may need to change more, right? Or your game. So right now, I really do not have those data in hand, but I encourage you to register and try that out when it becomes available. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that sounds really amazing. And right. Another question is that what is the motivation behind those two projects? Is it trying to convert those apps that are already abundant in iOS stores and Android stores to Windows Phone smoothly? And if that is the case, does Microsoft worry about like people who are just generate Android and iOS apps and try to convert them easily to Windows phones? So there will be, very few
original applications and games, right?
Right.
Thanks for your question. So there are actually two parts of it, right? So I would say why Microsoft is doing this. If you look back after Satya has become our CEO, Microsoft is becoming really a different Microsoft right now. We're really open. We want to embrace as many different platforms as possible. You can see our cloud platform, Microsoft Azure. We can host Linux. We've got Office free of charge on iOS and Android devices. I'm sure every one of you have the Office installed in your phone already, right? It's free, right? So when you are looking at Microsoft at this moment, so it is really a different Microsoft. And why we are doing these kind of bridges is that we really want to enable developers to bring their applications onto our platform with minimum effort. Because in the past, we know that when a developer, when they want to migrate their application or port their application to Windows platform, it is basically a complete rewrite, right? This is the same as if you have an iOS application and you want to do the Android version. How do you do that? Basically rewrite. Except that if you are using those kind of tools like Xamarin, like PhoneGap, Cordova, Kony, etc. Right? But if you started off with a iOS source code, you basically need to rewrite. So we know the efforts. We know this is stopping the developers to build apps on the Windows platform. And that is why we have this kind of breaches. And we are not just doing that for iOS and Android. We're also doing that if you have a responsive website, if you have a desktop application, welcome. We want them to become a universal Windows app and have that run across our different device families. So that is actually the motivation behind Microsoft to do it. Yes, please.
Hi. So it sounds like an amazing idea. The whole thing I build in one place and it works everywhere else. I'm just curious if a person who's built a web application and they're porting it onto the phone, and then they're trying to use the same thing on a tablet and as well as on a desktop. How much change is required? Because these platforms the way people interact with these platforms are fundamentally different. So the way we even write code is much more different. Right. Like notifications don't really exist in web applications. We create something that looks like a notification. So how much effort, do you have any information about how much effort is required when you shift different platforms like that?
Now, so you are basically asking about the top right-hand bubble, okay? So if we have a web application today, I assume that to be a responsive website, kind of responsive website design, that it will basically resize itself. If it works in the phone, and then you may have a hamburger menu at the top left corner, and then if it runs in a desktop, it also works. It just resize everything and rearrange everything. So if you have this kind of application, what we are trying to do is that we really want to keep your efforts to be minimal. So the simplest thing to do that is to use as our web application bridge, which is also described at this website, okay? And in fact, it is not released at this moment also. So you can see that for web apps, it is planned to release in summer 2015. So still a couple of months away. So if you are using this, what we call Project Westminster, these are all real bridges in real life, okay? So we use them for our code name also. So if you are using Project Westminster, you really have minimum effort because you can choose to just wrap the app around your website today. And I have been in US. I've attended sections about all these bridges, and for the web part, you will be able to choose. For example, you can package your whole website offline so that it is all residing inside your application, and then you submit it to Windows Store, okay? You can do that. Or you can have it always connect online, okay? So you just have the app wrapper, and then you have inside have it running. You can also do it. So this is the flexibility that the developer can have. Now, for all those notification, other kinds of stuff, it will probably be an add-on, okay? Because if you want to leverage specific features on Windows 10, for example, live tiles, okay? For example, our own payment gateway, you want to integrate that. Or, for example, you want to do the notification. We have our own notification servers, our notification services that you can leverage. So if you want to leverage those, you probably need to, after you wrap your website with Project Westminster, you will need as you know, at least a few lines of code that you in order to enable that. Okay, so you will be able to build on top of that. But I think the great thing here is that you can have a very quick way to first bring it on first, and then you can add your features on top of that later. Okay, so I think time is almost up, right? Okay, so I'll pass it back to the MC. Thank you. Yes, I will have the second. Yeah. So, okay. So, do we need time for you to change the rooms? If you want to think the other session is more interesting, you can actually go now, and then I can see some people coming in also, okay? Great. So feel free, feel free. I'll be staying after I finish this second session also. So you can talk to me afterwards if you want. So for those who have just joined, feel free to take a seat. Okay, so I think we are kind of all here. Okay, so let's go on to the second session. So this session will be around Windows 10, IoT, Internet of Things, and also our cloud platform. Okay, so if you were in my last session, you may hear about what we are thinking about Windows 10. Okay, and you may know Windows 10 is also covering Internet of Things devices. So all those mini boards like Raspberry Pi 2, if you have been playing with Arduino or any other kinds of this kind of sensors, okay, we do have a vision as the overall IoT vision that Microsoft is thinking about. And I would like to cover this part in the next around like 20 minutes, and then I will have also a Q&A for you guys, okay? So when we are talking about IoT in Microsoft, we will basically talk about it based on two things, because for IoT to work, it needs to work on the devices part, okay? And it also needs to work well on the cloud part, because when all these kind of different sensors are generating data, you will need a place to store and crunch those data, right? So from Microsoft point of view, on the client side, it will be covered by Windows. Okay, because as I've just said in my previous session, Windows 10 also covers IoT devices. And in fact, we have already released a preview of Windows 10 that is called the Windows 10 Iot Core that you can download today and load it into your boards like as Arduino or Raspberry Pi 2, okay? So we have got a website here called Windows on Devices, okay? So you will be able to download the Windows 10 Iot Core, and then down here we will have some tutorials, video tutorials, okay? And you can go ahead and select your Windows IoT device, and download and install and configure Windows 10 Iot Core on it. And we have different, video tutorials telling you how to do it today. So you can maybe just go to Taobao or anywhere that's when you can get hands-on a Raspberry Pi 2. Then you can actually download it today and follow the steps here to load it onto your Raspberry Pi 2 device. And since they have all those USB, HDMI output, etc., you will be able to set up your environments using Visual Studio and load some sample projects onto your Raspberry Pi 2, which is running Windows 10, okay? Or you can, of course, start writing your first Windows IoT application. So all these are actually available today. And you can see here are some of those beginners projects. We have those what we need for those projects. We have step-by-step guidance all on this website. This website is called Windows on Devices, okay? Or you search for Windows IoT, etc. You will be able to arrive at this site, okay? So in short, we do have IoT devices covered with Windows 10, because after all, Microsoft have been working on this kind of small devices for many years, because you may have heard of Windows Embedded, you may have heard of other development platform that is coming from Microsoft working on these kind of small devices. And then on Windows 10, with the platform convergence journey that I've just shown to you in the previous session, you know that we are actually bringing all these different OS together on, and we arrive at Windows 10. So all of these IoT devices, we also have Windows 10 covered them. You can install Windows 10 Iot Core onto these kind of devices. And since it is still running Windows 10, you get everything from the security, from the application platform. You have that same as other Windows 10 devices, okay? So we have the client side part covered. And then, of course, on the cloud part, we have Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft Azure is Microsoft's cloud platform. We also have a lot of features and components built in, which is available already today for different IoT scenarios. And I'm going to drill a little bit deeper on this part. So if you have your IoT project plan, no matter what kind of sensor you are using, if you are using these IoT devices running Windows 10, welcome, thank you very much, right? If you are using some other OSs, we also welcome, okay, because it will also work with the IoT suite on Microsoft Azure. So no matter what kind of clients or IoT devices or sensors you are using, you will be able to use Azure as your big IoT backend, okay, to collect all those data, etc. Now, for Microsoft Azure, our IoT offerings or our IoT solutions go into 3 parts. One of them is for device connectivity and management. That is more about what we call the event hub. So we need to have all those devices connected to our cloud somehow, right, in order to collect those data generated from them. And then we will have analytics and operationalized insights. So after we collect all those data, we need to crunch it, we need to get real-time intelligence from those data, because we know that those data will be huge. Those are real big data scenarios. And then after we get these insights or intelligence, we need to have them presented and to our business users or to other applications, so that they can consume this kind of data in a sensible manner. Okay, so we actually divide it into 3 parts. And if you look at Microsoft Azure, if you need one slide or one positioning statement, this will be this one. Microsoft Azure is an open cloud. So a lot of people ask me, hey, Microsoft is having your own cloud computing infrastructure. Is it that I can only run Windows Server on it? Is it that I can only choose SQL Server as my database platform? The answer is no. Okay, actually, the exact opposite is true. So you can see from this slide, we work with different languages, development tools, even app containers like Docker, etc. We work really closely with Docker. And then for those CMS and different CMS providers like WordPress, Drupal, or some older ones like PHP, BB, etc., they are all supported on Microsoft Azure. In fact, if you want to, for example, set up a PHP, BB site today, you do not need to set up your own hardware. You go to Microsoft Azure, we have those PHP, BB images pre-built for you already. Okay, you can just go ahead, fire up those images, and you have that. Your own. So we want you to focus on how you design your PHP BB website, or how you design the business logic inside Drupal, etc. We want you to focus on that part. For all those plumbing works, we do that for you on Microsoft Azure. So this is we have pre-built images for Drupal, for Joomla, etc. Okay, for WordPress, etc. Now, for devices, of course, any kind of device, no matter your users are using Android, iOS, Windows devices, all of them can be connected to Azure. If you host your Azure, if you host your services on Azure, all of these kind of devices will be able to connect to it. For the data platform, if you use SQL Server, of course, we'll be very happy, right? Thank you for choosing SQL Server. If you use some other database server like MySQL, like MongoDB, etc., it also works well on Microsoft Azure. And if you need some big data components, so like Hadoop, etc., we also have our implementation on Microsoft Azure today. And of course, for the operating system, you don't need to just have one OS for you to choose, and that is Windows. Linux is actually a first-class citizen on Microsoft Azure, and there is for our current Microsoft Azure users, a very big portion of them are actually running Linux servers. Okay, so Linux is absolutely a first-class citizen on Microsoft Azure. So no matter what kind of usage scenario or what kind of platform you are coming from, you will be able to leverage Microsoft Azure in some ways. Okay, so we have a very wide range of offerings here. Now, apart from all these different technologies that we're using, if we look at Microsoft overall cloud offering, there are a lot of different offerings here, ranging from virtual machines, which you can choose Windows Server or Linux Server, or database like a SQL Server, MySQL, etc. Or if you have specific needs like CDN, like you need a cache layer, right? You can subscribe to a cache layer on Microsoft Azure as your cloud cache layer. Okay, and then you have your servers on premises or have your servers on Azure, both are okay. So you do not need to choose Microsoft Azure, and it's not that you need to use everything in Microsoft Azure, because if when you really deploy your solution on Azure, you can choose what you need. Okay, just pick those that you really need. And then, of course, we'll be charging you on those parts, right? Because this is not a free service, right? We need to pay for that. However, if you're a startup, we have some really cool offerings for you, which I will be talking about it in a while. Okay, so right here, in fact, there are different offerings that you can choose from. Now, back to our IoT scenarios. So here I would like to give you a really overview of how all these different services provided by Azure fits into the IoT scenario. So let's start from the far left. For all those devices, so if they're running some real-time OS, like if they're having Android, iOS, or running Windows, for example, that's Raspberry Pi 2 running Windows 10, right? So all these, they will be able to connect to Microsoft Azure through a cloud gateway called what we call the Azure Event Hub. So all these devices, I know when you deploy IoT devices, there will be billions of maybe sensors out there, right? Or at least a few thousand, right? Or if it's just a few hundred, it's also worth really, because on Microsoft Azure, our Events Hub will support at the level of 1 million publisher, okay, at the same time, so that all those sensors generating data will be able to go through the Events Hub and then collect it at the back for the analysis at a later stage. So if your device already have those internet connection, can connect to Azure, just go ahead and connect it directly. For example, Raspberry Pi 2, okay? Just go ahead and have your application connect to the Events Hub. Now, if those devices do not have internet connection capability, for example, my Microsoft Band here, okay, it itself do not have Wi-Fi, okay, but it has Bluetooth, okay. So right now, what we will try to do is that you can go through a field gateway, okay. So in this example, my Microsoft Band here, it has a heart rate monitor, so my heart rate is monitored every few minutes, okay? And I can have it collected back to Microsoft Health, which is our health platform for all the users to store their health records, like how long did you sleep every day, how many steps you have walked every day. All this data will be stored in Microsoft Health. Now, in this scenario, the IoT devices will be my Microsoft band. This is the sensor. And then the phone, it actually works with Windows Phone, iPhones, Android phones. It works with everything, okay? So the phone itself is the field gateway, okay? And the field gateway will collect all those data and then send it back through the Events Hub and store it somewhere at the back, okay? So we are allowing this kind of field gateway to connect it to the Events Hub. Now, there may be some field gateway that does not talk to the protocol for Event Hubs. So there are two ways that we can do that. First of all is that we will be able to we will provide SDK for these field gateways, maybe some kind of router box for IoT devices made in China, right? We do not know what kind of protocol is that. If we need to have that connected to our Events Hub, we have a layer so that we can build this kind of protocol adaptation layer, okay, for these kind of devices to connect it to Events Hub. Or we can have that protocol adaptation layer built in the cloud. Okay, so you still fire up your data here, and then we have some special gateway to collect them and then having it pass through our Event Hub. So this is also possible in this kind of IoT scenarios. Now, after we collected all these data from I don't know, thousands of sensors, what we need to do is that we will need to do some analytics on that. So there are different ways that we can do that. We can do some batch analytics and visualization. If you are going this way, we have Azure HD Insights, Azure ML, which is machine learning, Power BI, Azure Data Factory, etc. We have all those components built for these kind of scenarios. Or if you need to do some really a kind of hot path analytics, we also have something called Azure Stream Analytics, so that you do not need to have batch processing of your data. When the data is streaming in, we get real-time intelligence from your real-time data right away, okay? So we also have that available today, okay? So if you have your IoT scenarios, you can come and talk to us, and we'll be able to work with you on these kind of scenarios. And then at the end, of course, for the presentation layer, you'll be able to work with it on build an application or use this different kind of Power BI, etc., in order to build that presentation layer. So Microsoft also have different some kind of pre-built tools so that you can build this kind of presentation layer in a really easy way. Okay, so all these are actually a part of Azure's IoT offerings here. And we actually have all these event hubs. We have talked about storage. Of course, you can store it in form of a database. And then we have machine learning, stream analytics, etc. for the analysis part of those data. And then we have different Power BIs, etc. to do the presentation part. So today, Azure actually have a lot of components that we have built already, and we are ready for this kind of IoT scenarios. So if you are really working on IoT, on Internet of Things, you play around with those sensors, and you have some business case that you really want to bring it to real life, you can come and talk to us, and we'll be able to discuss with you on how to leverage the capabilities on Azure on your project, okay? So a few things here from the learnings that we have so far. If we are building IoT solutions, we really suggest to think big but start small. Have a few sensors built around, try to build the end-to-end scenario, have that go through the Azure Events Hub, have that collected, and then do the analysis first. After you build this in smaller scale, you can scale up later on. So we suggest to start from start from small and then do the experience, learn, and then refine later. Now, another pattern is that we would recommend to start with the telemetry first. Okay, so for the telemetry means some remote measurement, right? So if we have a IoT sensor, on a car, to measure is a water temperature of that car, right? So these kind of sensors are actually kind of telemetry. And when we are thinking about the whole IoT scenarios, we suggest to start from these different sensors, different telemetry first, rather than think from, oh, what kind of data I want to collect, or have some thinking beforehand of what kind of data is useful for my analysis. Don't think from that way. You start and collect more data first. And when you have more data for the analysis, you will be able to dig out the valuable information from this large amount of data. So we would recommend to focus on all those sensors, collect as many data as possible first, and then you'll be able to extract some useful intelligence from this kind of data. Now, after we talk about Azure and things, so of course it sounds great, right? But as I've said, you will need to pay for that, right? Because this is not a free scenario. It's not a free service. Okay. For example, if you fire up a Drupal CMS site on Azure, we will be charging you when you turn on that. For example, virtual machine instance, will be charged you by the size of the instance, will charge you on how many hours you have turned on, okay? And then for each month, you will get a bill, okay? It's like paying your electricity bill. If you turn on an air conditioner more, your bill is bigger at the end of that month. So it is in this kind of scenario. However, if you are a startup company, okay, that is established within 5 years, you will be able to enjoy our Bespark offering, which you will be able to get as many as up to 60,000, and this is US dollars, okay, 60,000 US dollars equivalent of free Azure usage credited to your account. So that if you really have this kind of scenarios, IoT, etc., or you have some high-performance computing scenarios which you need to fire up a lot of server instances, okay, you may want to leverage our Bespark offering. So you can see the Bespark word here, BIZSPARK. So just go to bespark.com and you will be able to join. Okay, so if you really join Bespark, you will get 150 US dollars equivalent of Azure usage every month for 3 years. If you think that it is not enough for you and you want to go for the 60,000 US dollars offering, you drop me an email, okay? I'll be able to nominate you to go up one level to get this 60,000 US dollars offering, okay? So let me go back to my email slide so that you can copy my email, okay? So if you really want to leverage those offerings, drop an email to me. No matter it's an IoT scenario or you're building a mobile game that you need some kind of backend servers, right? And you want to leverage cloud, just try it out, okay? And it is basically free for you guys, okay? So that's all I have today. Thank you very much, and let's take a couple of questions. Any questions you want to ask? Anything? Maybe this side? I don't know. No? You're all happy with that? Any questions? Yes, please.
So, hi Andy, thanks for your very energetic talk. So, quick question. So, you're talking about this free Azure services available to startups. So, what are the additional terms? Are you gonna take the data away by just by us using it, or are you gonna honor the code, like just on a quick chat?
is no. So for the things that you have just mentioned. So there are some criteria that when we take a company into the BizSpark program. So there are basically a few simple criteria. First of all, your company has to be established within 5 years. So that's our definition of defining a startup company. Okay. So when you submit it to bizspark.com, we'll have some guys in call. We will go to do some sanity check. For example, go to your website and see, what you say about founded in 10 years ago. Then they will reject your application. Okay. So the second thing is that your I think the yearly annual revenue has to be below, if I remember correctly, around $1 million US. So I think for startups, within a few years, very few of them can reach that. Okay, so that's another criteria. And then the third criteria is that you need to be doing software development or building apps or building services, etc. So for example, if I'm a startup going to open a physical shop and sell noodles, okay, 菜仔面, for example. So, and you go ahead and submit it to BizSpark, they will say no, because you are not doing IT, right? However, if you are saying that I am going to build an app to sell noodles, then yes, you'll be able to join BizSpark. So these are some of the criteria that we're using. So after you join BizSpark and use our cloud. All those data, etc. If you have any source code, etc. No, Microsoft is not going to take that. There's nothing hidden here. So all those things will still belong to you after you either you'll be very successful, become a big company, or you just close down the company. So it is still yours. Okay. Great. Any other questions? No? If not, then thank you very much today. I'll still be here. So if any question, you can come up and we can have a chat. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheung. I hope you all have enjoyed the section and gained some valuable experiences interacting with our speakers. It is the end of the conference day 1 of the World Internet Developer Summit. Thank you all for your participation. I hope this has been a fruitful and remarkable day for you all, and that you are able to enjoy yourselves throughout the different sections today. Again, before the end of today's program, please remember to return the badges to the registration counter if you are not coming tomorrow. Please also fill in the feedback form and return it to the registration counter. Lastly, if you would like to take the shuttle bus, please go to the place where you dropped off this morning at 5:30 p.m. See you all again tomorrow at 9:30 here at Cyberport if you are joining the workshop, or see you in our next event. Thank you.